We have given you the Hermetic teaching regarding the mental nature of the universe. The truth that the universe is mental, held within the mind of the all. As the Kybalion says in the passage quoted above, all is in the all. But note also the correlated statement that it is equally true that the all is in all. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, and you know what that means. Time for another episode in our series of diving deep into Hermetic philosophy and the Kybalion. Wednesday wisdom, wisdom of the ages, which is what we did yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. If you missed yesterday's video, that was a very wonderful dive into the wisdom of the ages, and Sir Edward Dyer, and talking about a very similar subject in mind power and the power of our minds, which was funny because this research is obviously going into the mental nature of the universe, and that the universe is mental, held within the mind of the all. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves on chapter number 7, the all in all. How often the chapter begins. Once again, thank you for being here, reading this for purposes of teaching and commentary and expanding the mind so that through an increased awareness, we can hopefully increase the quality of our lives and the lives of those around us. Now, the chapter begins by saying, quote, "How often have the majority of people heard repeated the statement that their deity, which is called by many names, was all in all, and how little that they have suspected the inner occult truth concealed by these carelessly uttered words. The commonly used expression is a survival of the ancient Hermetic maxim quoted above, as the Kybalion says, to him who truly understands this truth hath come great knowledge. And this being so, let us seek this truth. This Hermetic maxim is concealed one of the greatest philosophical, scientific, and religious truths. This is the maxim from the Kybalion. Quote, while all is in the all, it is equally true that the all is in all. To him or her who truly understands this truth hath come great knowledge. And so, where we started earlier, we have given you the Hermetic teaching regarding the mental nature of the universe, which is what a lot of this book has been about so far. And so, that truth that the universe is mental held in the mind of the all. But note the correlated statement that we just read a second ago. It is equal true that the all is in all. This apparently contradicts the other statement. The apparently contradictory statement is reconcilable under the law of paradox. It is, moreover, an exact Hermetic statement of the relations existing between the all and its mental universe. We have seen how all is in the all. God is another word for all, if that's confusing you. God is in everything, but everything is also in God. Remember, we just went through the divine paradox in the previous chapter, and the mental universe before that, and much, much more. So we also did the chapter entitled The All Understanding God, Mental Transmutation, the 7 Hermetic Principles. We find ourselves once again on chapter 7 now, talking about the all in all and more of the divine paradox that we're dealing with, how God can be everything, but yet be a bunch of separate things at the same time. And so, how, in other words, how can one thing be a bunch of separate things while at the same time being one? Is there a oneness or is there a duality? This is the paradox. Under the law of paradox, this apparently contradictory statement is reconcilable. It is, moreover, an exact Hermetic statement of the relations existing between the all and its mental universe. We have seen how God is in the all, and we have seen how everything is in God. And so, now let us examine the other aspect of the subject. The Hermetic teachings are to the effect that the all, God, is immanent in, parentheses here, remaining within, inherent, or abiding within its universe, and in every part, particle, unit, or combination within the universe. This statement is usually illustrated by the teachers by a reference to the principle of correspondence, which we've gone over before. But let us go back real quickly to the principle of correspondence, just so we can hopefully glean something from this for ourselves. Once again, I'm no master. We're just on this journey seeking to discover the nature of the things that are, as Thoth put it. And so the principle of correspondence, the second principle of Hermetics, which comes after the number one principle of mentalism, is as above, so below, as below, so above. This principle embodies the truth that there is always a correspondence between laws and phenomena of the various planes of being and life. You might be asking yourself, what the heck does that mean? Well, there are things that can be seen on very grand scales that have a correspondence to things that can be seen on very, small scales, the micro and the macro. And you can use this principle of correspondence to reconcile or create certain correlations with things that may be on different planes of being and of life. So the spiritual to the physical, the mental to the physical. The truth that there is always a correspondence between the laws and phenomena of the various planes of being and life. The old Hermetic axiom ran in these words: as above, so below, as below, so above. The grasping of this principle gives one the means of solving many a paradox, which is what we are dealing with, and hidden secrets of nature. There are planes beyond our knowing, but when we apply this principle of correspondence to them, we are able to understand much that would otherwise be unknowable to us. This principle is of universal application and manifestation on the various planes of the material, the mental, and the spiritual universe, and it is a universal law. The ancient Hermeticists considered this principle as one of the most important mental instruments by which man was able to pry aside the obstacles which hid from view the unknown, perhaps to get a glimpse beyond the veil. Oh yeah, that's what it says. Its use even tore aside the veil of Isis to the extent that a glimpse of the face of the goddess might be caught. Just as a knowledge of the principles of geometry enables us to measure distance and movements, so the knowledge of the principle of correspondence enables us to reason intelligently from the known to the unknown, so from the concrete or the physical, the absolute, to the spiritual, the non-physical, or the subjective. Studying the monad, we understand. Well, with that being said, we come back now to our reference of the principle of correspondence. This statement that the Hermetic teachings are to the effect that God is immanent in its universe and in every part, particle, or combination within the universe. The statement is usually illustrated by the teachers by reference to what we just referenced, the principle of correspondence. The teacher instructs the student to form a mental image. All right, we'll put ourselves in the position of the student here. Let's form a mental image of something. a person, an idea, something having a mental form. The favorite example being that of the author or dramatist forming an idea of his characters. So maybe think of a character now. Or a painter or sculptor forming an image of an ideal that he wishes to express by his art. Interesting. With the painting sitting behind me. However, now, something having a mental form. In each case, the student, us, will find that while the image has existence in our minds and being solely within our own mind, yet we, the student, the author, the dramatist, the painter, the sculptor, is, in a sense, immanent in remaining within or abiding within the mental image also. So, in the same way, using the principle of correspondence, if we have our minds are like little small versions of the mind of God, which has been expressed not in the Kybalion, but in the Corpus Hermeticum, but more specifically in the Hermetica, in the chapter The Mind of God. It makes me want to reference that real quick, just for fun, because we like to go all over the place. If you're getting value, thank you for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate each and every one of you that spends time with me here on this journey. It is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. I'm always tempted to read the last words of thrice greatest Hermes. Wise words, although written by my decaying hand, remain imperishable, imbued throughout time with the medicine of immortality by the All-Master. Be unseen and undiscovered by all those who will come and go wandering the wastelands of life. And be hidden until an older heaven births human beings who are worthy of your wisdom. I almost got the whole thing memorized. It's a nice one. Having sounded this prayer over the works of his hands, Hermes was received into the sanctuary of eternity. The prophecies of Hermes, the initiation, the being of Atum, contemplating creation, the living cosmos, the creation of humankind. Man is a marvel. That's a really good one. I'm not seeing the mind of God in this one, though. The zodiac and destiny. This was really good. This was a really good one. Man is a marvel is a great chapter if you get the Hermetica and go through it. Contemplating creation. Interesting. Let's see if the Corpus Hermeticum has it for us. To Asclepius. The mind to Hermes. Letting God alone is good. Of the common mind to Tot. Very interesting. I probably titled my video that, and it wasn't the title of the chapter, and so now I don't know where to reference it. But the mind of God and us having little minds as similar to that of the mind of God. That's probably the first chapter of the Hermetica, but I don't want to get too off track. Anyways, as we've already done. So that was very interesting for us to do that example there, to think of a thought, an image, and then realize how we are actually a part, or we are in the image as it's held within our minds. I'll read how the book says it here. Quote, the student will find that while the image has its existence and being solely within our mind, yet we, in a sense, are immanent in this vision, this thought, remaining within, abiding within the mental image also. In other words, the entire virtue, life, spirit, or reality of the mental image in our minds is derived from the immanent mind of the thinker. That's a deep one, and I love it. I think that's worth a highlighting. I need to find my other highlighter colors. All I got is pink, which weirdly looks orange on the camera. The color's a little off. And somebody commented one time, the kitten affects the white balance. That is very deep. So what was it? The effect that the all is immanent in its universe, the universe that we are in. So it is immanent in us because we are part of the mental image. And so, illustrated by reference to the principle of correspondence, the teacher instructs the student to form a mental image. And then, once we've done that, we can realize, in each case, we'll find that the student, while the image has its existence and being solely within our mind, yet in a sense, we, the student, are also within, and I liked how it said it there. In other words, the entire virtue or life or spirit behind that mental image is us, of the thinker. Circle that part there. Consider this for a moment, it says, until the idea is grasped. See, that's what I'm doing here. I'm contemplating it, rereading it, highlighting it, thinking on it over again, going back over it slowly. Remember, pure philosophy is a spiritual striving through a constant contemplation to attain true knowledge of Atum, the one God. Those are the first words in the first chapter of the Hermetica. Consider this for a moment until the idea is grasped. That just like we can hold these images, and we are a part of the images within our minds, but then they aren't, they're always, flexible. It can always change at any moment. It's not fixed. It's not finite. It's infinite. So to say that anything in the universe is not ever changing would be to say that it is not real. But that's a whole different study that we've gotten from this in previous. If you've missed any of the series, I did the whole series on the Hermetica, whole series on the Corpus Hermeticum, and now we're more than halfway through the Kybalion, ladies and gentlemen. It's just so much fun. I enjoy this. To take a modern example, though, to try to understand the all in all, and all is in the all at the same time, which is the chapter we're reading here today. I've been sliding down my chair a lot lately. I need less slick. Let us say that Othello, Hamlet, Lear, Richard III existed merely in the mind of Shakespeare. At the time of their conception or creation. So let's just take one of those. Let's take Hamlet or Richard III, that's fine. But imagine that these existed merely in the mind of Shakespeare at the time of their conception and creation, and yet Shakespeare also existed within each of these characters, giving them their vitality, their spirit, their action. Whose is the spirit? Whose is the spirit of the characters that we know as Micawber, Oliver Twist, Uriah Heep? Is it Dickens? Or have each of these characters a personal spirit independent of their creator? This is very deep. This is why I love this. Because this brings a real question. Like a painting like this has its own spirit. You can feel like I don't know, the warmth maybe of the day. And you can feel the action of the water, and maybe there's a wind blowing. I mean, everybody will feel a different, but you know what I mean? Like everything that is a creation in any sort, even if it's somebody that created their own pair of jeans, there's a spirit that you could tell that came from the creator into the creation. And so is the spirit of the creation or the creator? Well, great question, Kybalion. What do you think? Um, the law of paradox explains that both propositions are true, viewed from the proper viewpoints. And so, Macabre is both Macabre and yet Dickens. And again, while the character may be said to be the author, Dickens, yet Dickens is not identical with character. Man, like the character, may exclaim something similar, saying, quote, "The spirit of my creator is inherent within me, and yet I am not he." Which sounds correct. If someone were to say that to me, the spirit of the creator is within me, yet I am not he, I would say, man, you're a pretty wise individual. You must have done some contemplation on spiritual philosophy. And I commend you for doing so. But how different this, how different is this? I think they might be missing how different is this from the shocking half-truth vociferously announced by certain of the half-wise who fill the air with their raucous cries of "I am God"? Now remember, we learned about that warning already, because though that was the previous warning in the divine paradox, is that the half-wise, or those who may misinterpret this wisdom, I think it's kind of mean to call them half-wise, but anyways, recognizing the comparative unreality of the universe, recognizing that we are in the mind of God, and this is just a mental creation, and that we are God, they could misunderstand that, either say it's all totally an illusion and nothing is real at all, or they might also take the folly that, whoa, I am God. But keeping in mind the divine paradox, in that I'm going to keep going here, I'm rambling too much. Fill the air with her "I am God." Imagine poor character, Macabre in this instance, or the sneaky Uriah Heep crying, "I am Dickens." The characters in the stories crying that they are the author. It's a good example. I'm liking this because it's not often we get this kind of analogy. I like analogies when it comes to this kind of study. And so, or some of the lowly clods in one of Shakespeare's plays grandiloquently announcing that "I am Shakespeare." The all is in the earthworm. That's so funny. Yeah, I think it was Groundhog yesterday that said something about the worm finding its way to a food source through the dirt. He was like, "Is that not some amazing form of consciousness?" I think was his question. And I jokingly responded, "Well, I think worms have some level of consciousness, but here we go. Here you go, Groundhog. Apparently, apparently, some of the lowly announcing the all is in the earthworm, and yet the earthworm is very far from being God. However, it is a part of it, and God is within the earthworm. And so, and still the wonder remains that though the earthworm exists merely as a lowly thing, created and having its being solely within the mind of God, the all, yet God, the all, is immanent in the earthworm and in the particles that go to make up the earthworm and ourselves and everything else that we see here in reality. Can there be any greater mystery than this of all in the all and the all in all? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the question that we are here to ask. And I like how the beginning of this chapter is going. How much further? Two, three. Oh, sweet. We've got quite a few pages before chapter 8. and the planes of correspondence. I look forward to that one. I always like the correspondence and the paradoxes. But with that being said, let us continue a little bit for another page or so. The student will, of course, realize that the illustrations given previously just now are necessarily imperfect and inadequate, for they represent the creation of mental images in finite minds, rather than what we've learned and discovered already is that mind of God is the infinite living mind. There is finite life and mind, which we have, and that is fine. It's fantastic. Actually, it's a marvel. It's a miraculous miracle that we can contemplate ourselves and creation and God and the Creator and that which is responsible for all of this wonder and sometimes, disaster. But this all part of this reality. You have to remember judgments of good or bad is human, limited, finite perspective viewpoints. And so, looking at this illustration now from a new perspective, understanding that this metaphor talking about looking at the characters and the authors, and the characters saying, "Oh, I am Dickens," or "I am Shakespeare," when that wouldn't be true, but the truth is also there that Shakespeare is within the characters that he created, the spirit or the essence. And so, this gives us the paradox. And we will, of course, realize this isn't perfect, for we are using a representation of the creation of mental images of our own finite minds, while the universe, everything we find ourselves in, is a creation of infinite mind. And the difference between the two poles separates them. And yet, it is merely a matter of degree. This is something that pops up often in Hermetics. Like there are these things that are seemingly opposites, sorry, which is a paradox, like the two poles being one thing, just varying by degree. And so, with that being said, while the universe is a creation of infinite mind, and the difference between the two poles of finite mind and infinite mind is opposites, and yet it is merely a matter of difference in degree, and the same principle is in operation. The principle of correspondence manifests in each, as above, so below, as below, so above. So as in the infinite mind of God, as in the finite mind of man or woman, and as in the finite mind of man or woman, in the infinite mind of God. And so, and in the degree that man realizes the existence of the indwelling spirit immanent within our own being, so like the Shakespeare within us, if we are the characters in the mental image of the creator, who's, the artist, the painter, the sculptor, the author, whatever, God, if we are these characters in this play, then we have spirit, the spirit of the author within us, immanent within us. Just as any creation has the spirit or how did it describe it on the previous page? I liked that a lot. It used more than the word spirit. Inherent, the fact that it's the all immanent every particle combination. Painter or sculptor. Image that, yeah, ideal. The student will find that while the image has existence being solely within her sense, remaining within the mental image. Ah, here we go. In other words, the entire virtue, life, spirit, or reality of the character of the creation of the mental image comes from that of the author, the sculptor, the painter, that of the thinker, us, the student in this example. The virtue and the life and the spirit of the creation comes from that of the Creator, because the Creator's spirit, or this is very deep. There's many words you could use to describe this more deeply. And in a degree that man realizes the existence of the indwelling spirit immanent within our own being, so will we rise in the spiritual scale of life. So, that's a statement there. In the degree that we realize the existence of God within us, and being a part of this, and it being a part of us, the degree that we begin to realize that, so will we rise in the same degree on the spiritual scale of life, hypothetically. This is what spiritual development means, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't think it was going to go so simple there. This has been really deep and complex, but that was practical right to the point. Like, the degree that we realize our connection to an existence within and with God within us will also be the degree that we will rise in our level of spiritual development. The recognition, the realization, and the manifestation of the force, of Atum, of God, of the grand organized design, infinite organizing intelligence, of the all within us. Try to remember this last definition, that of spiritual development. It contains the truth of true religion, which is a spiritual pursuit, a spiritual philosophy. Remember, as was told to us in the first words of the Corpus Hermeticum, Thoth, or Hermes, speaking to his son, he said, "Oh, my son, write this first book for humanity's sake and for piety and reverence, honor towards God. For there can be no religion more true or just than to know the things that are, and to acknowledge thanks for all things to him that made them, to that which hath made them, which thing I shall not cease continually to do." That goes right along with the words that we just read there. That of spiritual development, this last definition contains the truth of true religion. There can be no religion more true or just than to seek to know the things that are, and then to give thanks for all things and to that which hath made them. Atum, the one God, or the all, or whatever name you give it. Remember, the name of God is irrelevant because it is all names. So if it is all names, it can't be one name. I like that one because then you're like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. If the all is, if all is the all, if everything is God, then that would mean the name of God is every individual name. My name, your name, books, shelves, chairs, it's all God. Goodness. Geez, God, like you're everywhere, man. Little levity. Don't take, we're having fun on this journey. Constant contemplation, really. It's usually later in the day, like 2 hours, 3 hours later. A few days later, you're going, oh, that one line. That's why this is linked in the description to get it for yourself for personal reference to go back on these things. Because this is amazing. All right, let's finish up this last paragraph, unless it leads into the next one. There are many planes of being, ladies and gentlemen. Remember the physical, the mental, the spiritual, as we've learned about so far. And there are also many subplanes of life, many degrees of existence within our universe. And all depend upon the advancement of beings in the scale, of which the lowest point is the grossest of matter. I'm glad it's saying this. I always kind of said this off the top of my head because I've heard this somewhere before, but I need it repeated in print. So we're talking about the various planes of life and being. and the many subplanes of life, many degrees of existence in the universe, and all depend upon the advancement of beings in the scale, of which scale the lowest point is the grossest, solid, densest form of matter, probably like rocks and minerals, but we need to give those more credit because we're stepping all over them all the time, ladies and gentlemen. I like that joke. But the grossest forms of matter being the lowest on the scale, the highest being separated only by the thinnest division from the spirit of the all. And upward and onward along this scale of life, everything is moving all of the time. All are on the path, whether you like it or not. Whose end is the all, is God. All progress is returning home. All is upward and onward in spite of all seemingly contradictory appearances. Such is the message of the illumined. That made me think of something Wayne Dyer said one time, because, when you're talking about positive psychology and God is love and peace and, all of these kind of people say, well, what about the disasters and the evil and the terrible tragedies? And that's really, that can be answered a million ways. But he said, concerning evil, people that do negative, terrible acts to other people, how can these people also be God? He said, well, we're all still a part of God. It's just that I think he said, I don't believe in evil. He said, I believe in energy. And he said, we're either resonating at a certain energy level, frequency, of vibration. We are resonating towards source and going back towards and getting closer to source, God, spirit, and becoming more in tune with and aligned with that. And I think when we do that, we experience more harmony, more synchronicities. Things seem to work out better for us when we can get in tune and harmonize with source. But then there are those who, unfortunately are making the decisions to be dissonant and not harmonize and destruct and, disrupt others and life. And that would be, in his ideal, moving away from source. But all of us are on the path, regardless, whether we like it or not. And so we get to choose, ladies and gentlemen, do we want to resonate and begin to align with Source, with God, with Atum, with the All? Or do we not? Do we want to move away from and be dissonant and disconnected from that, which, as we learned using the author and the character example here, with the creator and the spirit and essence of the creator being within the creation, well, as the principle, as above, so below, as below, so above, the principle of correspondence manifests in each. The universe is a creation of the infinite mind, and yet the difference between the two poles separates them, and yet it is merely a matter of degree. The same principle is in operation. That which manifests in each and every one of us. As God, as man. As man, as God. As above, so below. As below, so above. That reminds me of a saying. Gods are but immortal men, and men are but mortal gods. But I don't think that's referencing the all, the one God. I think there's different layers of, like it said at the end there's very many various planes of being. And then there's also many different subplanes of life. And remember, there's the mental, the spiritual, and the physical. I put that in a weird order. The physical at the bottom, then the mental moving upward, and then the spiritual planes of being. And all of these depend upon the advancement of beings in the scale. Very interesting, ladies and gentlemen. The Hermetic teachings concerning the process of mental creation of the universe are that of the beginning of the creative cycle. The all, in its aspect of being, projects its will towards its aspect of becoming, and the process of creation begins. Wow. Amazing, ladies and gentlemen. Amazing. That is a boom to part 1 of the All in the All in chapter 7 of the Kybalion and Hermetic philosophy. I think we'll leave it right there for now. That was fantastic. It's a good chapter. I really like the example there of I'm going to ponder on this a lot today and then, later on and next few days, how the essence of the creator is in the creation, but the characters wouldn't go, "Oh, I am Shakespeare." Like I'm imagining a movie or something, and like one of the extras, it's like in the background. Like imagine, a famous director or whatever, and the extra in the background is like, "I am the director," because his essence is within this production, and I am a part of it. But it is also true at the same time. It's not true that the lowly worm is God, but it is also true that God is in the worm and the worm is in God. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the divine paradox, and this is why we use the principle of correspondence and other various principles of Hermetics in order to understand, as Hermes Trismegistus, thrice greatest, or Thoth put it, the Egyptian sage god, through a constant contemplation. A pure philosophy is a spiritual striving through constant contemplation to attain true knowledge of what? Well, there can be no spiritual pursuit more true or just than to know the things that are, to attain true knowledge of the nature of Atum, the one God, or the things that are. All right, I'll leave it there before I keep rambling. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Be sure to expand the description. Description. Be sure to expand the description, if I can say that correct, to get this book for yourself, to put it on your shelf so you can follow along in future episodes. I also have a link to this, the Corpus Hermeticum. I also have a link to the Hermetica, so you can get them. Because it's good to have for reference. If you're doing this kind of research, there's probably a few others that could go along with that. There's also this one, but this one's, something else. It's quite a different, it's not quite the same as philosophy. However, also remember to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, through a greater awareness and understanding of the nature of ourselves, so that through that increased awareness, we can hopefully increase the quality of our lives and the lives of those around us. And remember to seek to discover the lost wisdom of the ages and the mysteries of our history. And also keep in mind that there is no way to happiness because happiness is the way. It is what we must create the ability within ourselves. And once we've created that ability, we can bring it to life, bringing happiness to each of our moments. And then all those things we've been telling ourselves, oh, when I get that and have this and this, becomes irrelevant because hopefully then we are there. And then the journey to where we want to go should be a lot easier, a lot more peaceful, a lot more enjoyable, rather than always striving, rather than arriving. I've done a few videos on striving versus arriving. It's a very good topic. But there's also a link to my Etsy shop and my landscape paintings. I just sold the first one of this year, this week. Feels really great. So if you were the one who purchased it, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Means a lot to me. I put a little extra painting in there for you, so I know you'll love and appreciate those. And with that being said, also a link to C60 Power, the ultimate antioxidant known to man. Nobel Prize winning Buckminster Fuller discovered it. That's why it's called Buckminster Fullerene. If you haven't checked that out, check it out, ladies and gentlemen. And with that being said, until next time, till next week, be the change you want to see. Be the example that you want to set. No, 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 no. Thank you.